New Miracles new video, and it was very violent. Like it was 9/11.
Oh,
You
yeah.
remember that video? And a baby being washed up on shore because of the refugee thing,
Yes.
and a gun shooting a man, and he falls. I can't take that. I don't know what. I don't know how you guys can watch it and be so like. I don't know. I want to ask what you see. Like I see violence and even movies when I like The Matrix. I can't watch it because of the violence. I mean, I watch it, but I close my eyes and I shut the volume off or something with the gunshots and stuff. So,
Yeah.
is it true that you don't see what I see? Like, or you don't see the hurt or the pain and the violence?
Yeah, it's true. When you clear the mind, then everything that we're perceiving through the five senses is being generated from consciousness. So it's like, really, we talk a lot about projection, but really lesson number 2 from the workbook, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me, is a key lesson. That's just the early part of the workbook, which is kind of interesting. Is today the day 2? That is today's lesson.
That's today.
We're actually doing the workbook lessons in a linear, chronological way. And so if you don't have the judgment in your mind, then you don't see the judgment in the world. And so perception from the real world is very, very different. It's nothing at all like judgmental perception. It's nothing at all like fragmented perception. And it's interesting with that video that you're mentioning, which seemed to have some graphic parts to it, some very graphic parts as the world would judge it. I was over at the monastery, and a friend Louis from Brazil was up, and Suzanne was there, and Jason, and I was over in this house, and they spent like 2 days just collecting the most vicious videos they could find. What you saw in that video was like hardly nothing. It was, they picked out a few little bits and pieces, but I would just be in the kitchen eating, and they were in there. It was like a montage of death and destruction and guns and bombs and nuclear explosions and on and on and on. And I think they did show a pretty raw version of that, and that's when they filmed me with my commentary. But a lot of emotions came up in the room. Tears came up, and sadness and shock and all kinds of things. It was like a raw cut of it. And then what you saw, the video that got put out, was worked on, kind of blending in some extreme images here and there, and trying to work it through towards a higher perspective and a lightness more at the end of it. So that had gone through many edits to reach the one that you saw. But I think the main thing is you just have to be authentic. Like when you're watching a movie, any movie or any video, what I've been teaching for years is don't censor your emotions, don't censor your thoughts, don't censor your feelings. In the early days, I would do movie gatherings, and I had like I had worksheets literally people could go through and read all about. It's basically quotes from the Course painting a picture of how the mind works, and then they would go in and watch the movie. But the main point of watching the video or the movie was to watch it without any sense of censorship, like prejudging things, or trying to be the good student, or trying to see things the right way when there was all these emotions arising like a volcanic eruption. And I would say similarly in our communities and retreats, we're very encouraging of people getting in touch with their raw emotions. So I could tell you of something, and it's pretty similar to Jesus, where he he's given all these pep talks in the course, and then he goes and he goes down like a rotor-rooter, and he just exposes the ego, and then he gives you another pep talk and encourages you, and then just rips down some more. You know, basically, we're not saying that there's any way that you should feel. It's more that if you keep with the process of allowing things up, allowing that hurt up, allowing those attack thoughts up into awareness, allow that pain up into awareness, and let it move through, then you will cleanse and purify your mind with the Holy Spirit's help. So yeah, I would say you shouldn't try to project yourself to, I would love to reach a place where I don't have any negative emotions or any upsets, but practice with feeling what you feel, whatever that is. And then that's an important stage. That exposure is extremely important. And there is another stage that's above it called true empathy, which you will come to a point where you start being drawn into that distinction of seeing that the truth is true and only the truth is true. But until you start to move into that stage and you move through these dark emotions, you know, there's no point in trying to project yourself, you know, into some future state. So it's very appropriate just to be with what you feel. But it's true, I don't see the world the same way that I used to in the past. I don't have the same interpretations, and I don't have the same feelings or emotions either.
I was upset. I was like, why are they showing that? That's not a good choice. I mean, only peace and love movies. I didn't want to see the other side.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things there. I mean, when I was working with students way back in the 1990s, my friend Resta, who channeled all this music from the angels, one time I had her tune into, like, I think it was called the 700 Club. It was a Christian broadcasting network that was on the air 24/7. And she watched some of the programs, and she was so disgusted that she turned it off. She said, I can't even stand to watch this Christian network. And so I said, well, maybe you should journal about what you were feeling. And we had some sessions where she started to take a look at what she was so upset with. There was all these judgments that she had about what the ministers were saying and doing and so forth. So that was kind of going in the wading pool. And then at one point, I had her watch The Matrix, the first Matrix movie. And she came back and I said, how did that go? She said, I turned it off after 5 minutes. And I said, why? And she said, it was such a violent movie. And so I talked with her and I said, well, there really is no violence in the world. It's just a judgmental mind is violent. A mind that is judging is blocking the light, blocking the love. And so a mind that's filled with judgments, that's really the violence. It's not in the world of form. It's really, Jesus teaches us, my thoughts are images I have made. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. So you might say, attack thoughts show me a world of violence. So the recipe for peace is change your mind. You have to release those attack thoughts. That's lesson number 23 from the workbook. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. He just gives it to us straight, really straight. So I said, well, why don't you try to watch The Matrix again? And this time, while you're watching the movie, just keep a notebook and journal your way through the whole movie. Journal your feelings, journal your thoughts. So she did. And then she kept at it. She kept watching The Matrix and working with her emotions, working with her violent thoughts. And then finally, at one point, she came to me with a big smile on her face and she said, come on, I'm taking you to the movies. And I said, oh, what are we going to go see? She said, we're going to IMAX, cinema, which is, like maybe 6 or 7 times higher than a typical screen, and curved and wide. We're going to IMAX to see The Matrix, David. So not only did we go to the IMAX to see The Matrix, but you can go back in the theater seats, or you can sit in like the first 5 rows, like that. And that's what we did. We sat like in the 4th or 5th row, like that, and we enjoyed the Matrix movie. I mean, Trinity's leg kicks were huge. They were, I mean, just all over the screen because it was massive. And then finally, at the end of the movie, we just sat there. She still had a big smile on her face, and then we were listening to the guy in the front row who was just like, "Oh my God, what a spectacular movie!" And whoa, did you see those deep meanings? And I can't believe what I got in touch with during the movie. It was like the man in front of us at the IMAX theater was witnessing to the glory of how helpful of an experience that had been for him. So for her, it took a lot longer because where her mind was at with her violent thoughts and judgments. But for him, he was like a little child, just in wonder at this amazing movie. So it really, that's our lesson for today. Lesson number 2, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. So you won't try to find in our community, we're not trying to steer away from violent movies. Those kind of movies that people judge as violent movies, they do come in from time to time. Some of them are more like psychological movies like Cape Fear. Some of them are really graphic movies like Seven with Brad Pitt and the 7 Deadly Sins. And then there's one movie that I only showed it once, and people will never let me live it down. I think I was in Australia, and I was doing a gathering down there. I see Andy smiling, and I put the movie Piranha on, and I just had people, people getting sick. Everyone was comfortable. Everyone was laying on cushions. It wasn't the environment. It was the violent thoughts in the mind that people were getting sick. And then the only other one that comes to mind was, I think it was called The Impossible or something. It was the one with about the tsunami. Does anyone ever see that? It was about the tsunami in Thailand. Something like The Impossible or something like that. I remember Francis Zhu and I saw it, and Francis was watching my face during the movie. But what was happening in the movie theater is people, I mean, not just 1 or 2, but people were throwing up in the cinema. You could hear these barfing sounds during this movie, because particularly at the beginning of the movie, it was filmed very graphically and realistically of this wall of water coming, and houses, bodies were getting sliced. They had some shots, underwater shots. I think it was Naomi Watts, something sharp coming and just slicing her breast and something underwater. I mean, it was extremely graphic and everything, but actually Frances was watching me watch the movie because she was more fascinated by my face during the movie than the movie itself. I don't know what my face looked like. I think I was quite joyful, because that's just, I enjoy being in a state of mind that's not, has no violence with it. So it's truly a state of mind. But those are kind of some extreme examples. And the name of that Naomi Watts movie will come to me, but we may have to watch that sometime here. I don't know if it was called The Impossible or something like that. I don't think Andy and Jeff have seen it, but.
Is that the one where she tries to grab onto a child and save the child, or is that a different movie?
That's Hereafter.
Hereafter. This one's almost like a reenactment of the tsunami that happened over in Thailand. And it had a really good name, but I can't think of it. Yeah. But that's pretty much it. It's like, that's why we're doing all this mind training. We're doing the mind training to clear away the attack thoughts. And you might say that's the violence. The attack thoughts are the violence. It's not that there are violent people or violent movies or violent situations. It's holding on to a fragmented world that sees parts as if they're wholes in and of themselves. That's violent right there.
So then that's how you would see like the Holocaust.
Yeah. I mean, I could say it gets very deep, but to see an apple as an apple is violent. And why? You might say, what's so violent about an apple? Well, to see an apple as if it exists in and of itself, apart from the rest of the cosmos, we'll talk the cosmos of all these images. As soon as you take that apple and you draw a line around it and you delineate it by time and space, and maybe a color, a red apple or a green apple or a yellow apple, and then maybe you have a brand name on top of it from what, you know, it came from what country or what tree, delicious apple or something. There's Andy's giving us some props. Then there, what you see, if you see an apple as an apple, that's actually violent. You see how deep this goes, as opposed to, oh, that's a violent movie, or rated R for violence. You know, we're talking about a much deeper, subtle realm of violence, and it relates to what I was talking about last night about specialness. To see a person as a person is special. And you see how different that is from the common definitions of specialness. You say, well, if a person's just standing there doing nothing, is that special? Yes, because you're delineating that person apart from the whole, a holistic perception. Most people would say, well, now if that character starts to do certain things, then I'm going to keep a close eye out for when that character starts acting special. But the character being seen as existing apart from the whole, that's the specialness. And that's why I was saying, you know, when I was talking to Tamara about the fear of getting into special relationships, or the fear of getting caught up in those kind of things, the whole panorama of fragmented perception is the specialness, because the ego is the fragmentation. So the only thing you can do is say, okay, Holy Spirit, use this movie, use this character, use this life experience that I seem to have in form, and take me back to holistic perception. Take me back into the quantum field where everything is pure energy and connected. And take me back into holistic thinking, where I think with the same mind of the creator that created me. And that's the review lessons I'm doing right now in my readings. My mind holds only what I think with God's. There's no violence in that, but that's a very highly trained state of mind. It's emptied of attack thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So then that's how you see Hitler and the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And the gas chambers.
Gas chambers, all those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. I for some reason, I have a block about an apple being violent. It's interesting. I would never have thought of an apple as being violent. So it's taking it out of the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some really good workbook lessons. In fact, a lot of people think about lesson 136, sickness is a defense against the truth. When they hear that title, they go, oh, and they think right away of bodily symptoms and things that they associate with sickness. But Jesus, in that lesson, he actually goes and he says, you know, when you try to take a part out of the whole, when you try to wrest apart from the whole, that's what the fragmentation is. That's where all the guilt enters. That's where all the shame enters. It's the process of perception, of trying to deny holistic perception and holistic thinking and get into the parts as if they exist as whole in and of themselves. So an apple would be an example of that. And I did a talk one time, I believe it was down in Noosa, Australia, and people would have to dig this one out on YouTube. but I think the talk was titled something like The Blue Bottle Cap, where they had a water bottle that had a blue bottle cap on. So I unscrewed it and I did the whole talk of waking up to true perception and true forgiveness on the idea that this blue bottle cap had any reality. And it was the same dynamic. How do we, what's so big deal about a blue bottle cap? Well, the color, the shape, the texture, you know, all the things that go into a blue bottle cap are all the mechanisms that are used to make fragmented perception. And that's where the guilt enters. It's not what a body does that makes guilt, or what is done with an apple that makes guilt or makes innocence. It's just the very idea of thinking we know what anything means, and giving all these names and labels to all these fragmented parts is just reinforcing the fragmented perception. It's like trying to give a reality to something that doesn't even exist. So it's, yeah, it's quite subtle. That use of an apple is amazing that we had one here as a prop. Yeah, that's really the gist of it. That actually, when we look at the fragmented world, that was projected by the ego as a substitute reality. And that substitution is the substitution of illusions for truth, for specifics, for abstract. That's huge. That's like the only substitution. If you only had to see one substitution really up close and go, that's devastating. That's absolutely devastating. I don't want that. That's how we come back to atonement. But when those specifics are made up and it's forgotten that they're make-believe, then they start to take on a reality. Not in truth, but to the mind that believes in them. It's like a Pygmalion, you know, it's like you've completely lost touch with reality, and now you've focused your full mind attention on something, and now you assume that what you perceive is real. And that like seals the deal for the ego. Ego's just back in the mind sitting pretty going, gotcha. Now do or don't do whatever you want. You can wiggle and squirm all you want, but as long as you believe the perceptions are real, then your mind is in guilt. It's in hell.
I mean, that's a scary thing, to be so entrapped in your own image making that you can't get out. And you know, I felt a little fear thinking that, and then I think, oh, what's this retreat about? For guidance. It's about how to be led out of that.
How to be released.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more in a reassuring way that that we can actually get ourselves out of this mess with the help of the Holy Spirit? How do we do that?
Well, I think it takes careful mind training. It takes persistent mind training. It takes transfer of training. It reminds me of the old Carole King song, "Only love is real, everything else illusion." Beautiful teachings from the Course. That's the whole Course right there. But she's got a line in there where she says, tracing a line till we can define the thing that allows us to feel. Only love is real. That tracing a line, that following the Holy Spirit, guidance by guidance, prompt by prompt, go here, do this. And as we keep listening and following, then we let go of that analytical part that is trying to figure it out, figure the puzzle out. But we have to be convinced that it's safe. We have to be convinced that it's more than safe, that it's joyful and loving. And that's the Holy Spirit's job, to keep guiding us so that we feel more and more of these miraculous, expansive, joyful, happy experiences. And then we'll be much more likely to make the final leap and say, okay, I don't understand any of it. You show it to me. You show me the way. You show me that experience. Instead of show me the money, it's more show me the spirit. And that's how it works. That's how the convincing works. So it's very loving. It's very, very loving.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.